General Standard 2 anchors the QM rubric of standards for higher education. Educators sometimes disagree on academic content, but almost universally they agree that learning objectives are essential to the teaching-learning process. General Standard 2 establishes that course learning objectives must be present, and importantly, Specific Review Standard 2.1 establishes the basis for the course and must be marked as met for the review to proceed. Take special note of this last item. If 2.1 is not met, the review is halted and a consultation with the team chair will be required to determine next steps. Specific Review Standard 2.1 zeroes in on a key aspect of course level objectives. They must be measurable. Being measurable requires that the objectives precisely describe learning outcomes that are observable. The 2.1 annotation provides examples to help determine whether a learning objective is measurable and guidance on how to write measurable learning objectives. A special situation is included in the annotations for Specific Review Standard 2.1 that recognizes that some course-level learning objectives are written by the institution, have been approved by a curriculum committee, and may not be changed. When this situation occurs, reviewers are asked to examine module-level objectives in Specific Review Standards 2.2 to ensure they are measurable and aligned with the course-level learning objectives. Designing a course that incorporates the principles of Specific Review Standard 2.1 in the 7th edition would not differ significantly from having designed a course to align with 2.1 in the 6th edition. The all-important principle of ensuring the measurability of the course-level learning objectives is present in the 7th edition just as it was in the 6th. It will be helpful, however, to be aware of wording adjustments in the 7th edition that reinforce the distinction between course level and module level, emphasize measurability, and make General Standard 2 easier to read. Users of the 7th edition will find in Specific Review Standard 2.1 and its annotation a few wording changes from the 6th edition. To cut down on extra words in the rubric, a decision was made to adopt the word objectives to signify 3 words: objectives, competencies, and outcomes that are sometimes used interchangeably. It is recognized that in some institutions or educational settings, the other 2 words are used to designate course objectives. The use of or program was also removed from the Specific Review Standard because QM does not reference program-level learning objectives in course reviews. Course-level replaces course to clearly signal that there are different levels of instructional content in a course. A course is one level, and a course is made up of modules or units, which are another level. In the first sentence of the second paragraph of the annotation, the words learn and have been removed. The revised wording is measurable course level learning objectives precisely and clearly describe what learners will be able to do if they successfully complete the course. The word learn in front of be able to do is removed because objectives are to be worded as action-based. Doing can be demonstrated and is measurable, whereas learning, as a word used to describe a result or outcome, cannot be demonstrated or measured. Finally, an addition to 2.1 is a short statement at the end of the annotation to alert reviewers to possible variations in terminology used in continuing education courses. To succeed in a course, learners rely on the course being designed with objectives that can be measured. If a learner is able to demonstrate achievement of the learning objective that is described in precise language and receive confirmation of that achievement, it is like the difference between walking a path in the dark and having lights to show the way. To design a course to meet Specific Review Standard 2.1, course-level learning objectives must be measurable. Writing course-level learning objectives that lead to measurable learning outcomes requires being able to discern the difference between objectives that are observable and measurable and those that are not. Sometimes making this distinction is tricky. For example, the words understand and analyze both describe cognitive processes, but a course outcome that requires the learner to understand something is not measurable because we can't be inside the learner's head. In contrast, a course-level learning objective asking the learner to analyze something allows for observation and measurement. The learner can demonstrate the ability to analyze orally or in writing. When designing a course to meet this specific review standard, ensure the learning objectives are measurable and describe observable achievement, using action verbs to describe what can be observed or measured. One way to achieve this is to finish this sentence. Upon completion of this course, learners will be able to, followed by an action verb that describes an observable way, what learners will be able to do. In a course review, reviewers use the criterion of measurability to determine if a course-level learning objective meets Specific Review Standards 2.1. Reviewers are asked to look for measurable course-level learning objectives that describe what learners will be able to do once they understand or know or realize a concept in the course. For example, a learning objective that calls for the learner to understand the nature of reasoning could become a measurable learning objective by recommending that understand be replaced by the verb explain. Explain the nature of reasoning.